there's a bit of overconfidence, I think, in some areas on using AI or some company. And I think that's a mistake. It's actually testing, understanding what it's capable of, what it can do. Because when AI gets things wrong and it's not guarded, that can cause a huge amount of reputational loss.
AI's impact on content, business, and strategy is disruptive. Join us as we interview industry thought leaders on how to adapt. This is the Markup AI Podcast. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our next episode here on the Markup AI Podcast. My name is Chris, and I'm really excited to bring on a very special guest, Martin Hempstock. Martin is our VP of Platform Engineering here, and Martin and I co-lead with about 7 other folks our AI Council for Leadership here at the organization. Martin, thank you so much for joining.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So I'm excited to have you on because I think we have a couple of episodes coming up. We're going to talk about some more just personal feelings and how you see AI in the world in those moments that you've had where it's been amazing and maybe not amazing. But I'd love to bring you back on because you have been one of the leaders to actually deploy AI across the organization and help build adoption and use casing. So that's going to be a fun follow-up episode here. But I would love to start talking about these topics here, which is, can you describe the first moment that you personally realized AI was going to be a big deal?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one for me. I mean, in terms of my personal journey with it, it was almost instant. As I've openly shared quite a lot on LinkedIn with some other stuff I've posted. I'm dyslexic. I've literally always struggled with writing, and as soon as I tried ChatGPT and just chucked some thoughts in there, and it came out with something concise that I could never possibly write, was absolutely amazing. I mean, if I look through every school report I ever got, Martin would be amazing if he could apply himself or get his thoughts down. And then all of a sudden there was this tool that I could, communicate a lot more effectively. And yeah, it was huge. I think from the industry standpoint, the mindset flip, I think, was probably the moment. It used to be like this little secret thing that no one ever used to. I mean, when it first came out, everyone was like a bit ashamed to admit that the produced this fantastic technical document with ChatGPT and they'd sort of hide the fact. And then there became this sort of flip, especially within my own teams, where people were like bragging about it, and you were sort of almost stupid if you weren't using AI. And I think that was that was sort of the flip internally in the industry, I think, where everyone's using it now, and if you're not using it, why aren't you?
No, I agree with you. And I remember when I first started using it, I had a very similar experience where I secretly started using it to help answer internal questions. Sellers asking about dispositioning and how we compare to certain competitors that we may not have been directly in competition with, and we don't have a lot of resourcing around that. And I started using that to help facilitate and unblock folks. And then there was that flip where finally I made that GPT of myself, and I said, I'm not going to hide it anymore. Let people. It was amazing that the company was allowing us to take that first step and not try to bury it and no longer feel embarrassed by using those tools. Completely agree with you. So one thing I'd love to ask too is, there have been a couple of, amazing ways where you've used it to help combine those thoughts and get that mess that you got going on in your head into clear and concise activity. Have there been moments though where you've used it and you've just said, you know what, this ain't working. This is not what I expect. The hype on this is just blown way out of proportion.
I think there is a lot of hype. I mean, there's definitely a lot of hype, but I think the issues is more on, with most technology, it's more on the end user not understanding the capabilities of the technology itself. So, Joe, you'll see people declare something impossible, and you dig into it. It's why do you think this isn't possible? It's like, oh well, ChatGPT told me, and then you go and got to do a bit of education. It's like, well, ChatGPT might have been trained on data that's a year and a half ago, and this vendor's actually released the update after the training, so it's always going to say it's not possible. And you just understanding what the technology is capable of, what it can do. I think it's the same with coding. I've seen with developers in our own internal effort. They'll try it the first time and this is rubbish. It don't do what I want it to do. And you've got to learn how to use it with any tool, what it's capable with, and how it can help you.
Nope, I agree. I've run into a similar scenario here even more recently. As at Markup, we've released products. One of my roles is to figure out what kind of use cases, what kind of ways our tools can be used in integrations that we make and use cases that they solve and pain points. And trying to use AI to come up with those ideas, it will do one of two things. It will either say that it cannot figure it out because nothing has ever been drafted to talk about those problems that have been solved with these specific steps or tools, or it will hallucinate. And then you come to realize how much it has to rely on things that have already been published. It is not going to create brand new branches of things unless it completely makes things up that are inaccurate that you can't follow. Definitely been, it's all about using it in the right ways and understanding where those gaps are. But a lot of people get lazy and try to use it for everything that they think they can replace it for. And the moment that it deviates, it's, this ain't good. This isn't worth it. It's the headache to them. So something else I'd love to ask you too is, how are you using AI today? Whether, I'd love to know both at work and then personally, how are you using it?
Yeah, I mean, I know you said some people trying to use it for everything. I'm definitely one of those people. I mean, I'll go back to the first question about being dyslexic. I don't even type anymore half the time. I use, I've got a local running whisper model, so I'll literally, like a crazy person, like just dictate to my computer, just like rambling to myself. Then I'll take that dictation, I'll then put that into a higher tiered model, and then that'll put my thoughts concisely. I'll then move that into Gemini with the writing mode on, and then actually turn them jumbled thoughts into a document. I pretty much any point I still code day to day as part of my work, and I can't even remember the last time I opened an empty file and wrote the first line. I pretty much always start with something and then tweak that boilerplate from there so it does what I want. At home, I'm a home automation geek, I'm not ashamed to admit, and that's just getting bigger and bigger over the top. I mean, at one point I had it analyzing images on my camera and trying to decide if there was suspicious activity outside my house. Christmas, I did a new project. For everyone, I suppose, that ever goes shopping, it's a bit of a hard, trying to figure out what meals you've got. So now I'm using a local version of LibreChat that I just describe the meal I want. It then has an MCP tool to something called Mealy that generates the recipe card. And then I just ask the LLM, I need to plan my shopping for the week, and it creates the shopping list. So much to the so that I told it I want to organise my shopping by the aisles in Tesco supermarket, so I didn't even have to switch through the list. I honestly, there's not many places I don't use AI. I mean, not like really. There's pretty much always in some shape or form. Probably every 10-minute period of the day, I'm probably using it in some way.
How far away are you from just having it take the agentic approach and order everything through like an Uber Eats or Grubhub kind of thing?
I'd absolutely. I mean, the UK's behind on that. I actually look in America and I'd probably do that if I could. None of our supermarkets will do that, and I'm probably diving a bit too deep here, but I think that's because you lose the marketing aspect of it. If I'm just going to ask a AI to order my shopping, when I do it online, they upsell me and get me to buy the things that I didn't want to buy. But if an AI is doing it, it's only ever going to buy just what I want to buy, which I suppose is a business challenge in itself.
And it is, and I can't remember the source that I read this from, but I remember seeing somewhere, this was years ago, that the reason soups aren't alphabetized in shelving at supermarkets is because a significant portion of their sales come from people having to read through all of them to find the soup that they maybe have wanted. So maybe they wanted a chicken noodle, but then they see like a cream of mushroom and they go, maybe I will try that. And it's funny that you will lose that kind of discoverability and humanity as you go down this approach, which can also affect bottom lines of companies. But it makes me think it's a hilarious and real life example of where the bots streamlining things may or may not be that great of an outcome, both for the person and their discoverability. It's like the Blockbuster effect. I'm assuming you had Blockbusters out there, right? When it was the big thing.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
So like now, as we get Netflix, it's you might scroll, but it's rare that you can. I mean, one of the best reasons people saw non-popular movies was because you'd go to a Blockbuster to find that VHS or that DVD, and they physically didn't have it. There were no more copies for you to borrow. So you had to go and find another movie you were willing to watch. That problem doesn't exist anymore unless the licensing structure removes the movie from the service. If I want to watch a movie that's on Netflix, 1 or 1 million people can watch it at the same time. Doesn't matter.
No, yeah, you see how Netflix have dealt with it now. If you try and get to the next episode you've watched, and you've got to scroll through all sorts of stuff because, like, they're finding new ways of doing it, I suppose.
Hey, but you know what? I've been enjoying the content that's been coming up. It seems to have the right algorithm to understand what we want to watch. So it's been figuring us out, which is awesome, but also scary. I'd love to ask you next too, when it comes to things like business and opportunity, where do you see the largest opportunities are for businesses who are going to either adopt AI technologies, and where in those areas do you think would be the most impactful for them?
I mean, I'm going to have a biased view because I work in engineering, so it's easier for me to talk about engineering than wider things. So I'll give an example there. If I look at, if I even look here before we really, started using generative AI for coding, like you'd create a really short, simple script to do one task, and it'd just sit there. It'd hardly have any documentation. Now with like Claude Code, Cursor, all these things, you literally put in there, and even your simple hacky script that's only going to do one thing has got comprehensive documentation, unit tests. It's a full blown UI if you want. And so really, what I think has happened is the efficiency and quality of what people are producing is a lot better. You're actually making a lot more of higher quality stuff, quicker. And I suppose that applies to, writing as well. It's an area that I don't work in, but, in terms of content generation, what I've heard when I've spoke to our customers is, there's a lot more content out there because it's just easier. It's just so much easier to make a lot more high quality stuff quicker.
So I actually want to ask you something. I want to expand on this a little bit here. As I've been reading articles, regardless of how they're influenced, we have plenty of organizations out there that are pro AI, plenty of opinion pieces and folks that are against AI, all for good reasons that they have. But one of the things when it comes down to engineering and coding that I'm seeing is, yes, there is this great world of vibe coding, being able to produce more faster. But there's also this other side of it where there's this massive concern of the lack of either upskilling what would be considered a junior developer to what they're producing, where what they are making is enormous amounts of technical debt. I'd love to know your thoughts. Like, my opinion is move fast, fail fast is the best approach. But I can also understand that when you're on the other side of things and you have to manage expectations and make customers happy and fix problems, that's a massive amount of debt. Where do you see that balance? Do you have an opinion on that?
So I've not seen, I've seen similar articles as well where people have said, generative AI is creating loads of tech debt. People are creating unmaintainable code. People don't know what they're doing, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's not the business we work in. What we've done. I mean, if you look at our thing, we've got some very clever people that didn't use AI before. They're just like 10 times more productive, and they know what they're doing. Like the shift really is everyone's sort of an architect with about 3 junior developers underneath them that can do things. The bit that I've seen, and this is a learning piece that we need to do with the more junior people at the careers, is they need to understand what it is, they're doing. A new challenge. Universally, there's like a million memes about people just copying arbitrary code off Stack Overflow. That used to be it. And, and you couldn't do that either. You had to know what the code is. You had to know what the solution is. So I think that's the bit, that's the learning bit. It's easier to be bad now. I think it is easier to be bad. You can produce, something really bad and not understand it, and it works. But professional software development organizations don't work like that, at least from what I've seen. So I'm less concerned, to be fair.
Nope, I get that. That makes sense. I feel like the articles where I've seen this more in is where we're looking at a lot of very small stage, very limited departmental teams that are using these to try and scale the growth and the development that they're doing when they don't have the right resourcing to maintain and make sure that things are being deployed properly. But it is interesting to see how, as models change, How will that quality of code that is generated by folks adapt? How well will these models self-fix or self-diagnose? What kind of vulnerabilities will they add or reduce as these models get stronger? And how well will these models that nefarious folks will use to penetrate into these applications, how well will those continue to grow? It's this constant just race of one-upping, I guess, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So something else I'd love to ask too is, as we look into this idea of content is being generated at an enormous scale, and personalization is still a key driver or key goal for most companies to make sure that, people, when you're serving hundreds of thousands to millions of people, there's still this desire of being able to personalize those experiences, whether it's chatbots, emails, website experiences, application experiences. How do you see that in this world as we keep focusing on creating these hyper personalized experiences that are generated on the fly? How do we make sure that they maintain the right compliance requirements, terminology that's used, brand or tone, the way that they message and phrase things to these folks, these customers? How do you see that adapting?
I think there's all companies are different. The way they message, the way they just take like Ryanair versus Microsoft or anything like that. They're very different in the way they go out to the market, and that's rules almost. There's like concepts and information, around them of how they want to communicate, how they do things, and the LLM is the inherently generic. They're developed, to cover multiple use cases. So I think there's always going to have to be a place for like a central repository that knows the rules. And I think things are going to get better as technology improves, integrations. You look at the MCP, which is a well-established protocol now, and we're enhancing these LLMs with all this various information, and also then checking the output of these LLMs as well. There's this rule-based world versus the generative stuff, and they work hand in hand together. And I think we've seen that as well, obviously, with what we do.
No, absolutely. And so it's going to be interesting to see how well companies are able to maintain that balance, and maintain it effectively and consistently throughout every different experience that they offer. And as we talk more about these web experiences, we kind of dabbled on this earlier, but what I'd love to ask too is, in the future, we're seeing that humans are actually kind of less involved in user experiences as agents are now becoming a bit more dominant. They're becoming a bit more trusted in taking what would be considered user-based actions. What's the browser? Is it Atlas from ChatGPT? As it learns, and eventually the goal is to have it be able to take action. Like, for example, if I need to order food, I can say, order this food from this place that I like, and it will take the actions to either place that call or order online and have it delivered. Or if I need to book a flight somewhere, my agent may know my preferences, where I need to go, the airliner I like, and it will just figure out the best price, time of day, and the seat I like, and book all that, and I don't even interact with the website. That means that I don't see ads. That means that they don't see traffic that's generated. That means that I'm not time on site for them, which are key KPIs, key performance indicators for these companies to identify success of these web experiences. How do you see these companies adapting their digital world as we have to now create a world that is both accessible for humans and agents as they grow in number and popularity?
I think it's a new problem redone, and I'll explain that. So the web didn't used to exist. People used to walk down the high street and there were shop windows and that looks all right, I'll go in there. You'd literally, yep. And then the web thing, and then companies were like, how do I get my company at the top of the search results? I think so. And SEO were born, and that's a well-established industry that there's some incredible experts out there. We're going to have this equivalent with AI agents, that if it's the AI agents that's selecting what to do and what flight to get, how do you get your company at the top of that? I have no idea, to be fair. I don't think anyone's figured this bit out yet. But there's going to be a whole industry, I believe, around agent to agent and how you optimize your agent offering to allow other agents to use. And you're sort of seeing it already with technical documentation a bit. I've seen, where they'll have like a agent.md in the repo now that sort of tells an AI what to do with
Nice.
this tool, and that's the start. There'll be areas of the web that is just going to be specifically for your personal agent to use, and the optimization so you get picked is going to be a very interesting part of the industry, I think.
No, I agree with you. And I'm interested to see how this goes too, because there's so much, this part of the industry isn't developed yet, but we are already seeing companies that are talking about AEO and GEO, which is the ideas of getting your content in your site, your digital experience, ranked in LLM outputs. So when I ask a question like, hey, where should I go to dinner tonight? It knows my location and it knows I might like Italian. So it might recommend a local Italian restaurant. How do I, as that Italian restaurant, get my content ranked in there? Or how do I solve XYZ problem? As a company that solves that problem, how do I compete to get my response ranked in there? But then when it comes to this idea of the agent experience, how could you force or influence someone to go through a booking process if you aren't the person's recommended flight or fly at the person's preferred times? Like, that gets really interesting in a lot of these personalized experiences that I actually feel like, if you think about the approach of OpenAI's Atlas, as it's learning more about user behavior, direct web user behavior, not just in a social media platform, but everywhere on the web, I feel like that's what they're going after, to learn all that data, to make these agents hyper-focused for each individual that uses them. But
I think it's exciting. I think from a user experience standpoint as well, it's going to be amazing. Like the amount of time you'll save. I'm planning a trip with my wife in a few weeks' time, and we spent ages searching through the web, looking at reviews. Oh, let's do that. At some point, I'm going to say, me and my wife are going to go into Amsterdam. They'll know the past trips and what we ignore, and it'll just do it.
Yep.
I'll have say. I mean, there could have been 2 hours last night that I could have been finding something to watch on Netflix, probably. Instead, it's an exciting world. I genuinely think that.
I agree, because when I look at this and I look at the future, and I have a grandfather who's 94, who's not really into technology, and I think about his experiences today, and how we help. He's still in his home. We help him with food. We help him take care of the property. But when I hopefully reach that age, the availability of me to outreach for services and assistance and help in having things like food delivered are going to be so much easier. If I need to be driven somewhere, I could potentially order an Uber as long as I'm mobile enough. So I think about the future accessibility for folks that are either elders or those that have disabilities, in their ability to have a future that's more fulfilling because they can do more because of these technologies is really exciting. But then I always worry about who is the custodian of this data. What is this data to be used as? How will it be sold and shared? And that terrifies me as well. So it's, of course, the opportunity is there. We need to make sure we just do it right. And so, but I'm with you. Exciting opportunities out there. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go on, please. Sorry.
So the next question I was going to ask you is, what do you think AI just won't be able to replicate? Like, what's something you just think it will never be able to do?
Never's a strong word.
Well, so let's constrain never to 20 years. What do you think it won't do in the next 20 years? 5 years.
Yeah, let's just go a year. This thing, way things are like thing. The bit I'm not sure on is there's sometimes you look at something and instinctively that just feels right, and I'll stick to content generation, but that's what we help with. Like, you can read something, this is it, this looks fantastic, and you can't really put into metrics and words why that looks good. Yes, you could do things like A/B testing and see how things respond, but just that gut emotion and feeling.
Yeah.
The AI don't feel. It's like it's ever going to feel, and I think that is one thing it might never be able to. It might be able to simulate and get very close, but it's not going to be it's not going to have that human emotion, I think.
Of course. I mean, it's going to act like it feels the way it's told to feel. But the moment you adjust that model, it will immediately adapt without second thought of recourse of prior interaction. 100%.
Exactly, yeah.
So then one last question I'd love to ask you is, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes or challenges? Actually, I'd love to ask both. What are some of the challenges that businesses are going to face when deploying AI technologies? And what are the mistakes they're going to make that either cause those challenges or kind of shortcuts they try to take to circumvent those challenges?
I think there's some blind trust. And then I've mentioned this. I mean, there's probably a theme of me answers. So I gave this example earlier, but I'll give a real life example that happened yesterday, I think. So, like,
Fresh.
people are like, there's this whole new world of like using AI to generate leads and send cold emails and all of this stuff. I got an email yesterday from someone offering to help us build an AI, deploy an AI solution that allowed us to guardrail our brand and content. I was like, just
What are
like,
the odds? It wasn't from us, was it?
no, but and it was clearly automated. They'd scanned there, they'd seen my title, they'd sent it out, but there was, and they related it to the company, so it'd done a little bit of research, but it hadn't done enough research in terms of that cold outreach. And yeah, I mean, obviously, we'd never want those services anyway. But I get, and I'm sure as you do, I get a lot of emails like that are really automated. You've seen things where people will actually put a prompt in their LinkedIn bio and it come back. I've seen some funny stories there, and there's
Ooh. Tell me. Oh, I know what you're talking about. They hide a prompt in the bottom of their bio, so when automated emails send messages, it sends them like a rewritten sonnet or something like that.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I do remember that.
There's a bit of overconfidence, I think, in some areas on using AI or some company. And I think that's a mistake. It's actually testing, understanding what it's capable of, what it can do, because when AI gets things wrong and it's not guarded, that can cause a huge amount of reputational loss, I think, for the company. And just making sure that it's properly guardrailed and you know what it's doing, I think, is one area. There was two questions there, and I can't remember what the second one were.
Well, one was if the challenges that they'll face, but so one you're talking about, what are the common mistakes? So absolutely, they're going to be relying on it too much, where they're going to make these mistakes where they're going to either offend or turn off the folks that they're reaching out to, their audience, because they're using these generic, unresearched, scalable emails that are going out. Your point being, they're marketing us a product we sell. We're clearly a competitor, but they're trying to sell us their competing product. With that is something that 101 you would know before outreaching to that prospect, that they will probably not buy. And if they're interested, they're probably going to do it to dive into your product to competitively differentiate. So, yeah, but the other side of it was challenges deploying things. What do you think are going to be some of the major challenges besides those mistakes? Where do you see the pitfalls are trying to get these tools deployed and adopted with the team?
I think one of them is cost. And the reason I say it's cost is just trying to actually understand the cost. I think the whole basis of usage adoption and that it's sort of blown out. There's no, I mean, take coding, like, for example, there's a bunch of tools out there, a lot of them pay per usage, and you don't know how well things are going to go till like they've been rolled out. So you can roll out a tool, it does absolutely fantastic, and you've got a much higher bill than you expected. The bit where I don't think that's a challenge, and this is the attitude we've taken in our company, is if the cost is really high as they're using those tools, you're getting an incredible amount of value. If that, like, if you're getting 5x out of someone using that tool and they're using it a lot, then you're probably getting even more out of that. So it's a good thing, but it's quite interesting, I think, around like the procurement of these tools and just understanding what it is, predictions, forecasting. That is definitely a business challenge that we face, and I've seen everyone else face as well.
I can agree with you. And it's something that I look at quite often. I see there's always these challenges. There's been a report out recently, and this is a whole other episode we could talk about, that MIT release that said like 95% of deployments, AI deployments, show zero like ROI. But when you dig into it, it's like not only was the sample size small, and sometimes they are, and that's okay, but what they defined as ROI specifically looked at like what hit the profit and loss list. And there are there's plenty of things you and I have deployed for team members that don't hit the P&L, that are saving serious amounts of time and efficiencies that you can't just translate onto paper. It's the billboard effect. You can't tell me how successful a billboard is unless it's got a custom link on it, but you can see that awareness is getting out there from these practices. It's just hard to tie the ROI, the actual impact, in a lot of these softer areas. I agree with you on that. So I'm out of questions for this. Martin, I can't thank you enough for joining. And I'm excited because we talked about this earlier. We're bringing you back on. Again, you have been one of the leaders of enabling this entire organization. So in our next episode, we're going to talk about how you deploy tools internally to the organization so salespeople can get answers about our products and solutions, query applications like Salesforce to understand prospecting history. CSMs can look at ticket history as we go into ticketing systems and pull up open tickets and sentiment for customers. We've got so many tools you've deployed through a chat interface that is enabling our team members to save dozens of hours a week individually by querying these systems and providing information. So what we're going to do in one of our episodes when we have you back on is talk about how we got that through procurement, deployment, adoption, and use case. It's been a fun being a part of that, so I can't wait to have you back on again. Martin, thank you so much for joining.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me. And I can't wait for the next one. It's a labour of love, this bit, so can't wait.
Thank you. And for all of those out there, all of you, we're just starting this podcast out. We would absolutely love it if you would like and subscribe to this video. And if you subscribe to the channel and like the video, if you have any questions for myself or Martin, comment them below. We'd love to answer them. We'll answer directly back to you. So everyone, thank you for joining. And Martin, thank you again. We hope you all have a great day.